David, we hate you. David taught a class on hiring today. It was a good class.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I thought it was very, very interesting. Yeah. What?
You sit right here.
All right. So, kind of what we're going to talk about here is post Lauralee class here. Were you in her class?
I was in Lauralee's class.
This is her first class ever. What did you think?
She did a really good job. Best part about it, from my opinion, was that she brought a perspective from outside the industry.
Yeah.
I think that way too much we get kind of stuck in our own echo chamber. Mm-hmm. And all we do is talk about the same stuff, same perspective, same shit, different day.
Definitely. Tell us what your class was about.
I talked about the beauty of branding.
The beauty of branding. I don't think you're close enough to that microphone for.
Hello.
I'm gonna have to make some adjustments here, Lauralee. This is just.
Okay. Usually, you all tell me.
I hear nothing.
Well, you're deaf.
Huh?
Stop it.
Did you say something?
Huh? Is this better?
Why are you the way you are?
This is about me.
You see this? You see this dude sitting over here at the end of the table?
No.
This is why I'm the way that I am.
Did you hit record?
No, dipshit. I'm just sitting here talking for no reason. It has? It's usually when you're sitting behind the board that happens.
How many shows have you done and not pressed record?
0.
Oh, really? Okay.
No, that's never happened. He's lost some some recordings.
It's like, no, I didn't.
Yeah, he's lost some. Okay, so tell us what your class was about.
I spoke on the beauty of branding from kind of like the basis of like the beginning of putting your brand together all the way to rebranding and how it would affect your culture and your staffing and your clients and just all of it.
Where'd you get this idea from?
Branding is what I come from in my old role in cosmetics. And I'm a heavy consumer, so branding speaks a lot to me. I'm a complete brand whore, and I like labels. And
Do we miss the bar in automotive, you think?
yeah,
Okay.
I do. I don't think there's enough branding at maybe some shops, but I spend a substantial amount of time on the web looking at shops, and I think that branding is just something that's maybe looked over because it's such a technical industry, and there's a bunch of dudes running around that spin wrenches. They don't care about branding.
Right. I can see that. What was your takeaway from the class, Nathan?
Biggest takeaway on it was that, one, I got a lot of work to do.
Okay.
I don't really have a brand. I have a logo.
Yeah, of course.
Other than that, like I said, it was fascinating to me to hear the perspective from outside of our industry.
Yeah.
Because other industries do a lot more with branding than we do.
Yeah.
We're a lot of small shops that we kind of we fix cars. We worry about what our own immediate customers, but there's no consistency to most of what we do.
Right.
It's like after she asked us to look at our Google reviews, and I looked at mine and realized I have old pictures of my old sign on my Google My Business page.
Really?
So that's something that I need to fix when I get back to the shop, because it should be consistently, everything should look the same.
Of course.
But I've got a mix of a 20-year-old logo and a one-year-old logo.
Well, and so let me ask you some questions about that then. When you look at branding, what is it that you have really decided to bring to the shop? I mean, have you ever considered that we need to brand the shop? Have you ever considered that, or did you just say, well, I'm a tech and I can work on cars, and what I do is fix cars, so I'm just going to put this logo up and say I fix cars? We got into a massive argument. I don't know if you watched that last video. We got into a massive effing argument a while back because, like, I'm talking about hey, you need insurance and you need this for this guy starting this mobile business. And David's like, F that. You're effing crazy. And I'm like, why? And he said, well, because you don't need any of that if you don't have clients. And he's got a pretty damn good point.
Right. No, I never thought about it in terms of like a global branding thing.
Okay.
I would think of it more as like an immediate thing of send out some advertisements. I understood my dad ran a liquor store in a small town. And from that, our idea of marketing was it was our family, it was our store. And what we did in person in the store and how we talked to people and how we knew everybody, that was our marketing.
Okay.
So I approached my shop mainly a lot of the same way. When a customer comes in, hey, Joe, hey, Sam, one of the things that I did to differentiate myself from a franchise or a dealership was I would remember my customers' names.
Right. Of course.
I would do my best to have a nice, clean waiting room, have a clean shop. I wanted a place that people were comfortable with. And after a few years here, I started to kind of realize that in a large part, really I am the brand.
Right.
They bring their car to Nathan.
Yeah.
But I still struggle with the idea of having a consistent brand. Lauralee talked about posting on 5 different social media platforms. I'm lucky if I put a Facebook post up on the shop once a month.
If that, right?
Yeah. And Google My Business, other than responding to reviews, is largely ignored.
I'm the same way.
I have no idea what to post. I have no idea what to say. So,
and I was kind of guilty of the same thing because you get busy doing what the business does, right? And it doesn't feel like you have the time to do these other things. Lauralee, what do you think when you hear him say that? Because you kind of came into a shop that was my bad, homie.
Listen, man, it was just a name that people could recognize. I didn't know any better. And really, at the end of the day, it's just like Nathan said, it's not scalable at a certain point.
I think we're all starting to realize why she's so mean to you. I think we're all starting to realize why she's so mean to you. And so tell us now, what do you think when you hear them say that?
Nathan, I can help you with your Facebook posts. I'm sad for you. I think it's something you have to make time for. It's not an option. You need to spend some time setting up posts. And at this point, we're so digital, you can just sit down for an hour and pre-plan them out for a year.
What do you think about hiring somebody to do those things?
I think if you're not capable and creative, you should absolutely outsource that. Absolutely.
Okay.
Be careful.
And it doesn't have, as long as you give them the parameters and the guidelines of what you need the brand to look like and do and feel, then hand it over. But if there's going to go rogue and post, then
what if you don't have a brand at all, though? What if you are your logo?
Then you're in your very precarious place. It's hard. It's not hard for growth, I guess, if you do it right. But if you mess up, or if you sell, or you do go off the wagon in some way, the whole brand is tanked. You've ruined all your work.
Of course.
So I think you had a podcast recently about building just your business around just you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge misstep.
Well, and I have done that. And,
We have done that.
We were just talking just a little bit ago that the forums and the Facebook groups and stuff like that. I remember years ago, there were a series of shops, and they were performance shops. They sold performance parts. And what they did was they built this entire brand that they worked on this brand diesel truck, and they sold parts for this brand diesel truck. And so what ended up happening is eventually they had a little misstep somewhere. And this misstep turns into somebody getting on one of those forums and trashing them, which then turns into everybody trashing them. And so when you only promote to one group, right? We talk about specialization sometimes. When you only promote to one group and one demographic, and you make a misstep, especially if it's a powerful thing like a Facebook group or you can absolutely screw up big time. Whereas at least if you're diversified and more people know about that brand and they recognize that brand as more than just one thing, it's not as dangerous. But I mean, like, and I want to say it was Scott Palava who was telling us about a local shop. And I think it was an ice cream shop or something where dude did something crazy and it put him out of business just like that. I mean, and I want to be careful about saying that because we talk all the time about how one simple little mistake's not going to put you out of business. But not branding your business for 10 years and expecting your logo to be your brand and nobody knows about you aside from the clients that are coming through the door and you're not advertising or marketing at all, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
You know, that's as dangerous as it gets. Now, what I've been doing over here is I'm messing around and looking at all kinds of stuff over here. I'm looking for something because this is something I got sent the other day, okay? And you brought it up, and this is from your area of expertise. We're going to see if we can get it to play on the show, and I just want to hear your feedback on this, okay?
Okay.
And we're going to talk a little bit about what we're charging and why we're charging what we're charging, okay? Sure. And we're going to see how loud this is, but I just want to know what you think about this. And so we got to go back here and click some buttons around, and we're just going to do this right here. Let's make sure we get the... Okay, we're going to go back here.
Slow.
Now, look, here's the thing. I know this is a completely different thing, and people want things like their hair done or whatever, and I get that. But you as a shop owner, what does that feel like when you hear that? Because we've got shop owners who are absolutely terrified to tell somebody they're going to charge them $170 to look at their vehicle. And you just heard these people talking about getting their hair done, and it was $500. What does that feel like to you?
I think that we have a huge problem in our business with people with a lack of training and lack of confidence to be able to charge what they should charge. And I think a lot of it comes from technicians becoming shop owners.
Yeah.
We have a lot of technicians that never get any training on being a service writer until they open their own shop and they're making it up as they go.
Yep.
Technicians make terrible service writers because they started fixing their own car because they weren't going to pay retail to start with.
Yeah.
I became a technician because I was too damn broke to fix my car.
Right.
So I had to fix it myself.
Yep.
And it was a big struggle for me when I went from technician to service writer to get used to what retail prices were.
Right.
Because when you're working in the back, you don't know that. You just fix the car, you know how many hours a job pays, but it doesn't really translate into how much value there is to the customer for fixing that car.
Right.
And it was kind of a big turning point for me when, one, I got some training, and that helped a lot. And two, you just start talking to people outside of non-technicians. Talk to people who have to get their car fixed.
Yeah.
And realize that it's not $250 for a battery. It's $250 to know that their car is going to start when they get off the airplane and it's 2 a.m. and they have to drive home.
Yeah.
So now that $250 that's really reasonable.
We've had a lot of conversations in ASOG lately around how to present this, because this is not just as simple as saying, because I did the same thing when I first started learning about raising my prices. I've got some stories, right, where I went out and somebody said, hey, you need to bill by the hour and you need to charge more per hour and you need to charge for how much time you've got in testing. I didn't put any of the nuance in it. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I didn't put any of the work in that says, hey, here's how I explain this, and here's how we're going to communicate to the client and make sure they understand and get the prior approval. And boys, I will never forget. And it should have, it was a $400 bill. I still remember this day. It's $411.41. Okay. and I did not get prior authorization. Right. So what do you always hear me harp about? Like you always, it doesn't matter what it is, you get prior authorization before it goes up 1 penny. It can go down as much as it needs to go down, but before it goes up 1 penny, you get authorization, right? And you communicate with them about what that is. And so it took almost 5 hours of testing. And I thought, well, I don't feel right charging him 5 hours for this, because at the end of the day, while it was just a fuse, we did things to verify it wasn't going to blow again. And we fixed a wire and we did all this other stuff. But in the consumer's eyes, because of the way I explained it, I charged him $400 to change a fuse, right? And so it's not just being able to go to them and say, your bill's $400.
Yep.
It's being able to present that in a way that they understand, it makes sense, and that you show them the value. That's your responsibility as owner. And so when you hear that, right, because that was the field that you came from, not necessarily a hairstylist or whatever.
No, but I've worked inside of hair.
Right. But so what does that feel like to you when you hear that? Because you've been harping on all of us, right? I caught a lecture a while back because, like, what was it that you charged like $600 an hour to bring out your little baggie of
No, it's
stuff?
not that much. But I charge $150 an hour just to show up at your house to do some makeup, and that gets you an hour of my time. Anything past that, you're paying me additional hours of my time, unless you want to book me for a day, and then I'm a $1,200 day rate.
Well, so I mean, I guess that at the end of the day, that's my question is like, why is it that it seems in automotive that that's not acceptable? Why is it that so many shops are looking at this and saying we can't do this when this other industry reliable transportation is something very important. Like getting your hair done, I guess that's kind of cool. Nathan, you probably wouldn't know.
You're talking to the wrong guy here.
What about you? You look pretty preppy and prissy.
What's that supposed to mean?
I'm just saying, like,
I will say that my wife's haircut costs more per hour than what I charge.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. And so what makes that okay? I mean, it seems like we have to bring. I'm not saying they're not talented. They're really talented people. I mean, the sheer excellence in Charlotte, you can spend $1,000 in an hour in there like nobody's business. And so why is it that we have such a problem with that?
I'm going to say this, and I'm going to get reamed probably, but I think shop owners are scared.
I agree with you.
I just think they're scared. I think they think with their own pockets.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that isn't really the way to do business at all.
Yeah.
I don't know. And there's so much of the conversation about like, oh, my economic area. Oh, this is where I am. Oh, people are poor around me, or this is how much money they make. But in reality, that doesn't really ever matter or stop a consumer from spending on what they want to spend on.
Right.
And I know this because I was telling him, one of my friends dearly needs brakes on her car, but she used $1,500 to go buy a Taylor Swift ticket and denied the brake job. The value wasn't in the brakes.
Right.
The value was to go see Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
She gonna crash her car soon because she ain't got no brakes, and now she ain't got no money because she's spending on Taylor Swift.
And then it's going to cost her more money in the long run.
Yeah. And she bought like $450 worth of gear while she was there, like Swifty gear, So it's like they put money where they put value and fun and interest. And auto care is not fun or interesting.
I don't disagree.
I don't know.
Well,
You're absolutely right. I mean, it's not even fun on my side of the counter. So
Yeah. I mean, how can it be fun for them? I've got a friend, and we've talked a little bit about this back and forth, who just absolutely got raked over the coals on Facebook the other day. It was rough. It was bad. And I was talking to them, and they said, well, my labor rate is $80 an hour. How in the world am I supposed to like do any better than this? Because I can't continue to go on. All these people are mad because I'm overcharging them. And like, you're telling me you're charging more? I'm like, of course I'm charging more, because the people you got in your shop are the wrong people to begin with, right? Because that's what they're looking for. And they're, look, when you take somebody who is in poor financial shape and you make them spend money, they're going to look for everything they possibly can. You tell them that car is blown up, they're going to be looking for anybody they possibly can to say, this is your fault. I need your help with this, right? I don't think it's intentional. I think in a lot of ways it's that they're so frustrated they don't see an out. They don't have any money. And so they've got to find somebody to blame, because that's overwhelming. That sucks. And I get that. But here this guy is, he's charging $80 an hour. Well, we talk about finesse, right? And talking about the right way to do things. Well, they're charging $80 an hour to change light bulbs. They're charging $80 an hour to put a wheel hub in. They're charging $80 an hour to do testing. And so I think it's a miss on multiple labor rates, right? He should really have multiple labor rates so he can make sure that clients aren't getting taken advantage of for really low skill work. I'm a big advocate of multiple labor rates. But I also think that if you're a shop owner who doesn't know how to apply and implement these strategies, you got to be careful about jumping out and just dropping these strategies out and saying, I'm going to go with it, right? You got to know how to do it.
Yeah, strategy.
Oh, absolutely. And you have to provide, you can't just go from $80 to $200. You have to provide $200 worth of value. I'm in a major metro area here in Denver. It's freaking expensive to live here. My labor rate's right at $200 an hour, and I'm not on the high end of things.
Yeah.
But I also have a labor rate of $65 an hour for my oil change.
Yeah.
And that's the labor rate I use for rotating tires, for changing an air filter, and for changing oil.
Right.
And if I'm going to be doing some complicated electrical testing, I'm probably charging closer to $270 to $300 an hour.
Right.
Because that's a test that is more valuable.
Yeah.
So in the shop owners have to, first they have to believe in the value of what they're doing. They have to believe that that brake job is worth $650.
Yeah.
And they have to get out of their own pocket, because they would never pay $650 because they would buy the parts at wholesale. They would do the labor themselves. So for them, a brake job is $100 worth of parts.
Yeah.
But for a customer that doesn't know how to change their brakes, that might as well be building an airplane.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's incredibly valuable for them to be able to stop when they get to a stop sign.
Yeah. For sure.
We have some pretty high mountains here. Nobody wants to fall off of them.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I don't know.
But so tires and brakes,
Yeah.
very, very valuable. And there was a Facebook post about somebody who was talking about being too expensive on a set of brakes that
I
would have been.
You're saying that. I'm sitting here thinking the
Yep.
same thing.
I mean, I would have been 2 to 3 times that cost.
Yeah.
And my customers will pay it without thinking twice. Because one, I've built up some trust. They know that I'm not going to recommend anything that they don't need.
Yeah.
And they know that if I tell them that this is what it costs to do the job correctly and to provide a quality repair with my 3-year warranty, they pay it.
Yeah.
Because they want their car to stop when they're coming down from
Right.
the mountains at 70 miles an hour,
Yeah.
and they need to be able to stop.
Yep. Well, and you know, when you walk back through that post and you look at all the different comments and some guys that 2 years ago would have never ever thought about charging that. One of the things that I've noticed about this, and I've paid quite a bit of attention over the past couple of months. We're at Ratchet and Wrench 2023. You go to some of these training events and you look at some of these coaching companies. You've long said that you're uncoachable, right? 100% can't be coached, not going to happen, right? And so I wonder if some of these focuses that have been placed on our industry are placed in the wrong place by accident, okay? And what I mean by that is A lot of these coaching companies and a lot of these events are built for bigger shops. They're built for a 5, a 6, a 10 bay shop, right? You know, the class I'm teaching tomorrow is about a small shop. Why? Well, because some people don't want a big shop. Some people are completely content in a 3 bay shop or a 4 bay shop. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. I have seen more shops fail by coming out of a small shop, a 2 or a 3 bay shop, that they never optimized or maximized what it was capable of in the first place. And then they go into a 10 or 15 bay facility and they didn't know what they were capable of in the small shop, right? I'm not saying I would go back. We were at your shop yesterday. Beautiful shop, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm not saying that I would go back and I would trade for the smaller shop. But we lost some stuff. We lost some efficiency. We lost some productivity when we came out of that shop and went into the big shop. Yeah. And so I think in a lot of ways, the small shop's been discounted. And nobody has been there to train them. Nobody's been there to say, there's a better way to do this. You can do this in a small shop, and this can work. A lot of the strategies that are taught today, and I'm not trying to throw shade at any of the coaches or anybody else, a lot of the strategies that are taught today are tough in a small shop. It's hard to make it work. And I learned that firsthand because a lot of what I was trying to do was what I was seeing in these groups and seeing what everybody was saying. Some of the things that work in a 10 bay shop do not work in a 3 bay shop.
No, because there's things that you have to be able to scale.
Yeah.
You can't do, if you have a business model that some of the coaching companies push, and a lot of them, almost all of them push for the idea of either multi-shop ownership or absentee ownership. So that means you have to have enough volume to pay a manager, to pay a service writer, probably 2 service writers, and probably 5 technicians. A lot of these strategies don't work for a sub-$1 million shop.
Yeah.
And before I bought my shop, I managed $1.5 million shop. So for me, it was a huge struggle to figure out how to run a 1 and a 2-man shop.
Right.
Because everything that I knew
was
from a big shop. And I tried to replicate it, and I almost went out of business in the first 2 years because I was trying to do something that wouldn't work on the scale of what I had.
Yeah.
So like when we talked earlier about branding, but the brand of my shop is largely Take It to Nathan.
Right.
And that works in a 3 bay shop.
Yeah.
Because for a 3 bay shop, it's never going to be big enough for me to be an absentee owner.
Right.
There will never be a face other than mine that will be the face of my shop for a 3 bay shop.
Let me ask you about this though. What if something happens to Nathan? What if something happens and you can't work anymore? I've said often, well, you got to build value into your organization to where if you have to sell it, you can sell it. Or that if something happens to you, it can continue to make money. What do you think when I say that? Like, what comes to mind when that?
I'm not big enough for that. If something were to happen to me in the next few years, the shop's done. The business is dead. End of story.
How does that feel though? I mean, are you okay with that?
I've accepted it as the reality of the situation.
Okay.
So, but one of the reasons why I went from a 1-man shop to a 2-man shop a couple of years ago was the idea, well, if I break my arm, I'm out of business. If I break my leg, I'm out of business. So now I'm at a point now where if I was permanently disabled, the shop's done. If I gotta be out for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, the guy I got working for me, he can run it.
Yeah.
If I grow a little bit more and I hire a second person, then the shop can run for a short period of time without me.
Yeah.
What's the struggle would be to replace myself with a person that has to be paid a salary and then still have enough money to be profitable after I replace myself.
Right, to be able to pay yourself in the whole 9 yards. Yeah.
Because for a 2 or a 3 bay shop with 1, 2 technicians, it's hard to have to generate enough profit to pay for a manager in addition to paying for an owner.
So does that mean that you put different protections in place? So if something does happen, I mean, do you have some type of insurance or something that if something happens to you, I mean,
Yes.
what's your sustainability then?
Yes. So I have a disability insurance.
Okay.
If I get hurt and I'm disabled for the rest of my life, it will pay me a certain amount of money every year, basically replace the income from the shop. I would just sell the business, liquidate assets, and basically walk away from it.
Okay.
We have, like I said, I have disability insurance. I have life insurance. So, and I contribute to retirement plans because largely at the size that I am, I still own a job.
Yeah.
So I treat it as a job. I invest in retirement as if I was an employee.
Right.
Because at this point, my business isn't valuable enough to sell.
Right.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that at this point. It's just, you have to recognize it. Because I see.
Yeah, if you don't, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble.
Yep. Because I see posts, I see advertisements, I see people trying to sell a business and they want $500,000, but the business is worthless.
Yeah.
Because the business revolves entirely around one person.
Yeah.
And it's not ideal situation. I wouldn't actually, if anybody's wanting to open their shop and get into this, I would say make a plan to get past where I'm at right now. Otherwise, it's a little sketchy.
Yeah.
But recognize where you're at. Don't make a plan based on a fantasy.
Right. Well, and I mean that's a big thing, and I don't necessarily want to say switching gears, but like you look at what you guys just went through, and the huge change, right? You're always like right near something happening in a bad way, where you could lose a major staff member, you could lose a critical employee, and the shop can be dramatically affected overnight. Now, David and I have talked many different times about like this constant churn of whether we like it or not. And the keynote speaker today said, my average tenure is 14 years. But what he doesn't say is that's average. And so there's some in there that I've turned over 5 and 6 times. And that sucks, right? And the constant churn of having to do that wears you out. How do you guys feel about that now that you're on the other side of this? But there were some talks about doing something different business-wise when everything was going down and it was such a mess and things sucked. Yeah. Looking back at this now, how do y'all feel about that? Is would you rather be in a smaller shop, or are you thinking, look, I'm going to continue to grow this thing, we're going to get into something bigger, we're going to do something better, and build into that resilience some structure where we can have the manager? Because you guys kind of wanted to be absentee owners, right?
I would like to work less.
Right? Well, I mean, you just open the door to
I mean,
she's not going to let you work less. You know that, right?
she's the one that never shows up to work.
I'm the absentee owner.
But then I see a picture on Facebook of her chilling on the deck.
Did you catch that?
Yes.
You caught that. Now you've got dinner with these two later. You've got dinner with these two later.
Yes.
And so I just want to point out to you that if he goes missing, you're an accomplice. Okay? Let's be real about this.
Good to know.
Me and Dana have a plan tonight.
Okay, if you both go missing, I know nothing.
Right.
This episode will never be released. But I mean, seriously, what's the strategy from here then?
I mean, at this point, I want to scale. I've definitely changed.
We've changed what that looks like, though.
Wait, tell us how. Tell us what changed.
Culture, people. I mean,
But I mean, what changed with your plan, right? You had an idea of what it was was going to be before. What's different about now?
so when you're going down that dark path, right, you see nothing but negative.
Yeah.
And the only thing you can think about is, I got to go work for somebody. I'm done. It's over.
Right.
You don't see anything positive forward moving. And then when you do finally see that light and you get a bit of stress relief, you kind of can get a little clearer picture of what do you really want to do.
Yeah.
And, Cecil really helped me. Hey, man, you got to figure out what you want to do here, 'cause I do the same thing every other shop owner does. I go back and forth.
Yeah.
Working for myself is just more appealing. I have a really good thing going too. I have a good sized shop. We have pretty decent people. So at this point, I would like to max my shop out and
Right.
then maybe potentially buy a couple more.
Gotcha.
We wanted 3 shops. That was what the goal was 3 shops that we were going to build ground up our shops. And the one we have now would be the flagship shop, right?
Yeah.
But now I think the plan is that we don't necessarily want 3 shops. We just want to buy all the local shops and make them our shop.
There you go. So that keynote speaker this morning, right? I was sitting there thinking, and I almost wanted to ask a question, but didn't end up asking it. I was sitting there thinking, how do you develop a vision for what he's done with his organization? Okay. And I've noticed that owners who come from a parent or a family business, they take a different trajectory business-wise than someone who comes from, I'm starting my own shop. Okay. So like the guys that mom and dad owned a shop and they gave them the shop or they inherited the shop, however it worked, they typically go multi-store, right? It's very common for them to be multi-store, and they typically take it and run with it. And they find success usually. Not all of them, but a lot of them do. The independent owner that has never been in a repair shop aside from being a technician or something like that, they typically have a lot harder time finding the destination that they want to head to. They have a harder time saying, in 5 years, I want to be here. And this is what that looks like. And here's how much money it takes to do this. And in 10 years, I want to be here. And so I don't know if that's a byproduct of, you grow up in a shop, you see the mistakes mom and dad make, you see all the things that they did, and you say, I can improve upon this. And if I improve upon this and I see all these things, I can take this and I can implement this system I have in my head. Look at Mike Allen, right? Multi-store, very successful. Dad owned a shop. Mike's story literally is, I saw the mistakes that were happening. I saw where we were missing out. I grew up in elite coaching. I grew up in these programs, and I was seeing, and I could see where dad was missing it. I could see what he wasn't doing because I was so exposed to the negative in it that I could realize if I just did X, it would work. Those of us starting shops typically are not seeing that vision that far out like that. Why do you think that is?
You don't get that 1,000-foot view when you're growing up through the business,
Yeah.
The only thing you have to go off of is where you've worked at prior.
Right.
Which is why we continually generate poor shops, because they typically leave because it's a poor shop, right?
Right. And so they create in turn a poor shop. And
Yes.
so we just have this.
Well, because you don't know any better. You don't know what you don't know, right?
Well, I think one of the good dynamics about us is because I don't come from auto care.
Yeah.
So when I walked in, I was coming from business. And so I could see holes all over the place that weren't going on. He had such a good, solid shop with good technicians and good customers. But I was like, friend, we could make this really big if we just did X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
But he didn't see those things because he doesn't have, he didn't have a business education background. He didn't have a marketing background and a branding background. So I came in and helped out with those things, and we were able to kind of move the mark because of two very different perspectives, I think.
You're not blinded by commonalities in our industry either.
Yeah.
It's fresh eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, even my dad owned small business. So you would think that maybe I would have a little bit more. But no, my dad owned 2 little stores, and he was always running them. He worked 80 hours, 90 hours a week. So until you know that it's possible to get out of that rut, for lack of a better term, you don't have the imagination to figure out, I can get over here.
Yeah.
Until you can imagine that you can get over there, then you can start looking at, oh, how do I get there? It's why I think there's so much value in some of the ASOG Facebook group, because people get their feelings hurt when Seth Thorson comes out and says, oh, I made $1 million last month.
Right.
But until you have a Seth Thorson that has 3 shops that are doing $1 million in a month, I'm not even sure if that's what he's doing, but then you start thinking, well, wait a minute, if this guy can do it, how did he get there?
Right.
What can I do? So it's like there was a guy who can't find employees.
Yeah.
And then a couple of us looked up his website and his Facebook page and saw his shop, and that it's like, dude, this is what the problem is.
Right.
Hopefully he gets over being butthurt
Yeah.
and looks at it and goes, wait a minute, these other guys did this.
Right.
If somebody else can do it, I can do it.
We see a lot of butt hurt. You know, as moderators, we see a lot of butt hurt.
Oh yeah.
We see a lot of hurt feelings, and we see some people get like pretty ridiculously petty and mean and
You work in
whatever.
a big shop before you started your own?
No.
Did you work in a small shop?
No.
Did you ever work in a big shop?
I one time managed 22 technicians.
Did they all get butt hurt a lot?
There was constant drama with that many people. When I was managing a reconditioning department at a used car dealer, I had 22 technicians, 2 tow truck drivers, 3 porters, a couple of parts people. We were constantly hiring. Somebody was calling in sick once a week.
Exhausting.
There was drama with boyfriends, drama with girlfriends, drama. But yeah, nobody was always getting along. So, and I guess this is probably a really good management lesson, is you have to learn when to ignore the noise.
Yeah.
You know, when somebody's butthurt about something, it's okay to just let them vent.
Yeah.
You don't have to address everything.
Yeah.
And even when you go to conferences like this or anywhere, you get shop owners talking, somebody's going to get their feelings hurt.
Yeah, for
especially
sure.
if we're sitting around the bar and somebody's had a few drinks and somebody's get their feelings hurt about something.
Yeah, for sure.
But you don't always have to react to it. And sometimes if you said about it a little later, you realize, yeah, maybe they were right.
Well, you know, we've done that with some people in ASOG, right? To where we've kind of let it cool down, and they come back and they're chill and they're like, probably missed the bar. We've had some who absolutely refuse to listen to any voice of reason at all. Anything that disagrees with what they believe right now is a problem, right? And to each their own, I guess, right? It doesn't matter. It's just that I find it so interesting that there are so many people, just in the confines of ASOG, who are exposed to this information and this knowledge, yet they're still head down fixing cars. They're still marching forward fixing cars. I know this other shop owner that was completely head in the sand when things were going sideways at the shop. And the worst that things got at the shop, this dude just like continued to bury his head in his ass.
It's easier to put your
it
head
me?
down and keep working.
Is it me? Why are you looking at me?
It might be you.
Could be us.
It's maybe me. I wouldn't say I was burying my head in the sand, but it's just an element of stress my brain didn't want to deal with, I guess.
No, I mean, that's the thing, right? Is because it's hard, right? And like to get through it, like what do they say? You got to go through hell to get to heaven, right? Like you have to march through it. And
The
so
only
many,
reason I got through it is because of that gal over there. For real.
yeah, I can
mean,
agree.
Man, she's a good weeder. She is, though.
I don't disagree. When you threaten someone with death, I mean, you typically take off and do a good job.
I
mean,
can't even get mad because I started all this crap. But no, I mean, she
seriously,
was
yeah,
a
she
voice
is.
of reason under high stress situations. And I'll be honest, sometimes at the very end, I had to calm her down quite a bit because she's just
I was no longer the
get
voice of reason.
done, man. You know, your brain
Yeah.
just turns it off.
well, but I mean, like that's just it. Is like some of these shops have consciously made the decision. I'm just going to sit over here where it's semi-comfortable. This sucks, the dumpster is definitely on fire. I am sitting in the dumpster. It is floating down shit creek, literally. And I'm going to sit here and pray to God something changes without taking action or doing anything about it. Right? I mean, we've seen quite a bit of that.
You get scared and you freeze up. Some people do.
And human beings can get used to just about anything. Yep. They will convince themselves that whatever situation they're in is, oh, this is normal. It's okay.
Yeah.
Instead of, because if you got to fix the problem, it's scary.
Yeah, it is, because
And-
you don't want to break it worse.
Right. You don't want to make it worse. It was for my shop, COVID ended up being really good.
Yeah.
And it's because when COVID hit and people stopped driving, everything I had to really focus on who is my customer?
Yeah.
Who was I as a shop, and what was I going to do? Because just sitting there waiting for things to change didn't seem like a good option to me.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there in an empty shop because we were essential employees, so we go back to work, but nobody else around me. None of my customers were at work, so none of them were driving. So I'm sitting there filling out 1,000 postcards to send out to all my customers to tell them, I'm open.
Yeah.
We're here. I had customers bring in cars for maintenance items that they weren't due for.
Yeah. Just to try and,
Yep.
same thing for us.
So that was what was really focused on who is my customer.
Yeah.
And that was this is what a relationship business means,
Yeah.
as opposed to, I wasn't sending out oil change coupons. I wasn't sending out anything transactional. It was just, we're here.
Yeah.
And my customers, my community responded.
Yeah.
So that was really focused on, okay, so this works. This is, because that was a change that I had to make. There was really committing to
Of course.
that.
Yeah.
But until I was faced with sitting there with an empty shop and no phone ringing and no cars on the road, it was like, okay, I got to change. I got to do something here.
You know, you say that. All right. So something I've been thinking about lately. I remember the hardest times in my shop, like when I was super stressed out. And I remember thinking to myself, if I could just get all these cars fixed, right? I just want to get these cars fixed. And once I get this done, everything will be okay. And once I get these cars out, I'll feel better and I'll have some free time and I can clear my head and I can breathe. And then I'll get things straightened up. And once I get things straightened up, everything will be okay. And I went through that cycle probably 15 times. And then I would slow the shop down. I'd get all the work out. I'm like, all right, I feel so much better. And I'll never forget my coach at the time saying to me, Lucas, you don't want to get rid of your problems, because if you get rid of your problems, you're dead. What you want is better problems. And let's talk about what those better problems are. And so at the time, I didn't really dig into that thought process. But now I've seen a lot. I see the signs of it with a lot of the shops that I know and a lot of the shops I talk to, right? Because what are they saying? Well, I'm just so busy right now. I just got to get caught up. And right? And what are they trying to do? They're trying to get through the cars that they have. And then they slow down and okay, I can breathe. Well, the problem is they never build sustainability into the business, right? Because the business has to, in perpetuity, fix cars. It is going to fix cars forever. And those problems that come with fixing cars are always going to be there. You're not going to do anything about that. They're always going to happen. And so why not begin to talk about what those problems are and fix them instead of waiting until I have time to do something about it? But I've seen so many people do that, right? It took a pandemic for you to have enough time to sit down and say, like, hey, I got to rethink this son of a bitch, right? Like, this is crazy.
Well, I do think at least one positive thing with COVID was that you could sit down and take time to regroup and dream again about what you. And I think we have a lack of dreamers in the industry, whether they're blocking out any futuristic dreams because they are so busy trying to get cars in and out, or they are busy staffing or whatever, putting out fires. But you have to keep dreaming. And COVID, I wrote pages and pages during COVID. I felt so burnt out prior. And we came out with tons of event ideas and marketing ideas. So that was good because I got a chance to kind of breathe and dream again.
For me, I think looking back, it wasn't even that I didn't have time. It was really at the end of the day that it was so stressful. Mm-hmm. It was so overwhelming. All of these clients want their cars right now. And I didn't know how to set expectations. Yeah. And so I'm not saying like, here's what I can do. And so they wanted their cars right now. The vendors wanted their money right now. The technicians wanted things to be better right now. Like there was this whole host of things pushing inward at all times. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to stop the madness. I wanted to slow things down so I felt like I could get my hand back around them, okay? And so I specifically remember a couple of different situations where like that's literally what I was trying to do. I was trying to like figure out if I slow this down, I can get back to where I can manage it again. And the problem is that was only showing me what my management skills were. It was showing me what my potential was for managing. And if I knew then what I know now, I would have seen that I was lacking and I needed help and I needed information, I needed knowledge to be able to begin to put those pieces in place and say, okay, I can perform at a higher level with knowledge and information. I can consistently perform at this higher level. I can generate more revenue. I can do it without wanting to off myself because this is too stressful. And I can balance the shop and can take a deep breath here, right? I can leave for a day, for God's sakes. I mean, does no one else think that it's a problem that shop owners say, there's no way I could take a day off? If you have a business and you can't take a day off, something is effing wrong.
Yeah. Well, somebody posted that they hadn't had a day off in 20 some years or something. One day I was
That's
like,
absolutely ridiculous.
I think we block it off from being a prior technician. As a technician, for me, when I start a job, I'm looking for that completion and that gratification, right? So as we have a constant flow of cars coming through the shop, we're always looking for that end, right? But they're in a good shop, there should never be an end, right? So, I think that is maybe a bit of a fault that we carry as past technicians turned business owners.
That post that they're talking about, it very much sounded like that person wore that with a badge of honor.
Yes.
I've not had a day off in 30 years.
All I'm trying to get is days
cool
off.
With that.
Hang on a minute. Well, and I mean, somebody walked in. We're going to have them on the show tomorrow. Somebody walked in earlier and they said, I started this shop for freedom, and really quickly realized that owning a business has nothing to do with freedom. No. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't have that structure in your business, you will not have freedom when you start it. Okay? And my fear is, and we catch a lot of flack. There are 5 particular people that I can think of. We get hate from every direction. I'm completely good with it. It's okay. I don't mind at all. But there's 5 particular people who consistently get upset because we're encouraging people not to start shops. And what I wish they would understand is that the reason that we're saying that is because a lot of the people trying to start shops don't understand what they're getting into. And it is not, I don't want to say it's not all it's cracked up to be. It can be extremely rewarding. It can be a lot of fun. It can be very profitable. It can be an enjoyable process. But I am going to tell you that if you think there's not going to be struggles, if you think you're not going to have problems like you have working for someone else, if you think that you're going to have more freedom than what you have working for someone else, you're fooling yourself.
I was caught off guard.
Yeah.
I was that guy, for sure. And I had multiple shop owners that I worked for in private shops that said, you ain't ready, man.
Yeah.
I thought I was ready.
I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for none of it.
I mean, I had been a technician. I had been a service writer. I had managed $1.5 million shop, which with inflation is probably $2.5 million shop now. I'd managed, like I said, 22 technicians at one point. I knew what a P&L was. I
You had a good education behind you.
And it's still different.
Yeah.
It's a different world when it's your money, it's your name, and there's nobody else to make the decision.
Yeah.
When you have to hire somebody, when you have to fire somebody, when you have to sit there on a Friday night and decide, am I going to pay this bill or that bill?
Yeah. And we all do that,
So-
no matter how successful.
Yep.
And you can be extremely successful and still be there. And I make jokes all the time about being up at 3 a.m. I mean, y'all get messages from
No,
me
you're
at
really
3
like up,
yeah, like going,
making groups.
I don't know if I can do this. Like, this sucks. This is tough. You know what I mean? Like, you wake up and your heart's beating fast and you're hyperventilating. You're like, whoa. Did I do this? Did that happen? Did this? And you can't control all of these things.
Too much emotion.
And so we go into this and we think, I don't ever want a boss again. Oh my God. Let me tell you something. You start a business and you just got however big your customer list is, that many bosses. Okay. And they're not reasonable. Some of them are. They're not always kind. They're not always respectful. Right. And you're dealing with people who want something from you. And I just think that sometimes we miss the boat. We as shop owners, we come out here and we start these businesses and we go at it and we're going to do this thing.
And I think that a lot of times, so I think one of the personality things that makes a technician a good technician is a very linear thinking,
Yeah.
very tunnel vision. It's like what Erich just made me think about this, what he said,
Yeah.
I want the start and I want the end.
Yeah.
And that is a really bad characteristic for a business
Dang
owner.
Right.
Yeah.
You dang right. Because there is no end.
No, and there's no linear progression. You have to think about at the same time that you're dealing with marketing, and then you have to deal with a car, and then you have to deal with this, and you have to deal with that. And I'm not a visionary. I am not a creative person. I couldn't give you a vision for my business. I'm a linear thinker. I do one step at a time.
Fix the car.
My wife, though, she's very visionary, very creative. She's the one that helps me have a big picture
Yeah.
because I couldn't do it. It's not in my personality. I've come to realize that there's things that I just am not good at.
Right.
So, and I think that personality trait that makes people good technicians is a handicap that has to be overcome to become good shop owners. It's why I look at some of these people that came in from outside the industry.
Yeah.
Adam Rath,
Oh man, they're always almost more successful. than-
John Starkey.
Yeah.
You know, these are people that came in outside the industry and they had an idea about building a business as opposed to an idea like, I just want to fix a lot of cars. Or from my point of view, I ran out of people that I wanted to work for. You know, I'm the guy who said, I'm not working for that asshole anymore.
As David would say, you're unemployable.
Yes, I'm very much unemployable. And that's why my business has to work because it would be an absolute disaster if I had to go back to work for anybody else.
Right.
So, you know, you have to, we have to learn, we have to be self-aware. We have to know what we're good at and what we're bad at.
Yeah.
Lauralee's class today was really good for me because marketing is something I'm bad at
Right.
because I can't picture the whole thing.
Yeah.
I can picture I need to design a logo. I can't picture that my logo is only one part of the entire.
Yeah. The
Picture.
brand
So-
itself. Yeah.
For me, I know that as I scale my shop, I'm going to have to hire people to do this stuff because I just can't do it. So that's
And I've done the same thing. And I can do some of those things, but I found it was much easier to hire somebody than to try and do it myself.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
I've-
what they always preach, delegation,
Do
right?
what you don't
Yep.
want to,
Delegate.
hire what you don't want to do.
So I guess kind of in closing, I want to ask you two both something individually. You've been a moderator for ASOG for, let's see, almost 4 years now.
has it been that long?
Wow,
I think
really?
it's been that long because you
Wow.
came on right after I did.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's almost 4 years. I'll have to go back and look.
Yeah.
Had a lot of discussions. Seen a lot of stuff happen in that group. What would be your message to the members of those groups? You know, you see some common themes over and over again. What would be your message to them?
Listen to the people that have been there before. Nobody is picking on you because they want to put you down.
Yeah.
We've all made the same mistakes, and we just don't want to learn from our mistakes. You don't have to make them all yourself.
Yeah, 100%. I'm right there with you. So many things, and it often comes back. It's negative. It's this. It's that. It's really not.
No.
You don't know the tone that they're saying it in. What they're doing is they're over there gritting their teeth, clenching their fists, saying, "Please God, don't do that. Please God, don't do that. Please God, don't do that." You know,
Somebody, might have been Andrew Lee. Or anyways, somebody in one of the thread probably a couple years ago now was dealing with a really hard-headed new shop owner, and he said, "Listen, my business is successful. I don't need to spend my time arguing with you. So I'm doing this to help you."
Yeah. What benefit would it be for me just to stand here and argue, just to be an asshole? Why would I do that? Doesn't make sense. The majority of the people in that group really are not being negative. They're trying to help, and they're working hard to help.
Yes.
Lauralee, what would be your one thing you'd want them to?
Please use the search feature. No.
Did Dutch pay you for that?
No, but Dutch and I align a lot. I think I was like his wife or something in a past life.
Poor soul. Give you a pat on the back.
I'm used to it.
No, but the same thing. Like, well, you know what? Even outside of like trusting everybody, my advice to some of these people would be get yourself some friends outside of the industry that run a different type of business.
Yeah.
Or an executive friend to look in and have these conversations with you. Because as much as I love all of you and all of your perspectives, I get a lot of really great feedback on our business from my friends who don't work in automotives. And they keep me energized, and they keep me excited, and they keep me on track, and they kick me in the butt when I'm messing up.
Yeah. I've got a really good friend of mine, and he owns a big company, okay? A while back, I think he said something to the effect of, well, I guess you know you've made it when you got 4 tugboats in your employ, right? Right? Like, big company. And he was standing in my office one day, and he was supposed to be picking up a car. He answers the phone. He stands there, and he shakes his head. Okay, I'm on my way. Tell him to come get me, and I'll get on the plane, and we'll go. He walks off. 3 weeks later, he comes back in, right? Kind of curious.
Like, friend?
What was that about? And he said, "Oh, we hired this guy back. We shouldn't have hired this guy back. He was working on a propane tank and broke the nozzle off the tank and doused himself in liquid propane, which then ignited. And, you know, we shouldn't have done this. And I told him we shouldn't have done this, so I had to go deal with that and visit the family and do all this stuff." And I'm thinking, holy cow, my problems don't seem nearly as big as they did just a few minutes ago. He's like, man, you know, we're very careful and we're very precise, but this happens a lot. He's like, you know, you've got 3,000 people that work for you. There's going to be mistakes.
Always.
And I'm over here thinking, like, I'm worried about my guys. You know, well, why did you ruin that lug nut? Why couldn't you have, like, done something better to get it off? Why did you? Well, it was swollen, boss. Well, I understand, but I would have gotten it off. And I'm thinking these are problems. And this cat's over here having to go talk to families about the fact that somebody had lost their life. And I'm thinking, you know what? My problems really are not as big as they seemed to be just a few minutes ago. And he looks at me, and I'll never forget this. He looks at me and he said, "Son, let me tell you something." He said, "With big money comes big problems. Yeah. And you need to make a decision. Are you going to be able and willing to tolerate big problems that comes with big money?" Yeah. And he said that, you know, this is just what it is. And he said, you need to make that decision. And he said, if that makes you nervous, then I'm going to tell you right now, you should probably go get a job. Mm-hmm. Because he said, one day, he said, I pray to God it never happens. But he said, somebody's going to be back there working and something's going to happen to them. Yeah. Something there, you are always, and he's the one I get that term from. You're always on the razor's edge of life. Because you really are. You never know when something's going to happen. And if you can't stomach that, the business is probably not for you, right?
Oh, I think so many people think if I just get bigger, it'll get easier.
No.
Lord
it does
have
not do
mercy. It
that.
just gets harder and harder and harder.
You can put more people in place to manage it. You can
Yeah,
put more
then you
people
gotta
in place
manage
to
them.
help. Right. Exactly. And God
lot.
forbid, I watched a shop and he knows I'm talking about him and he listens and he's going to send me a message here as soon as this comes out. I've watched a shop that was absolutely optimized to the T, multiple locations, smooth as can be. And we've had some really hard conversations over the past couple of weeks because they lost some advisors and it set this thing in motion. And now it's not like can't pay the bills, but now all of a sudden technicians are upset because they're not getting the hours they were getting. So instead of making 120, they're going to make 60. And so all of a sudden, like this whole thing, even though he's got great leadership structure and people in place to do all this, guess who gets to solve that problem?
Yep.
Yep.
That doesn't go away, and that will never go away. And if you're expecting it to go away,
You're fooling yourself.
exactly.
Yep.
Thank you guys.